Googlization. I wrote that 5 years ago, started to write it 5 years ago. I did my TED Talk, Make Change Work for You, in 2016. For that, I had so much other information about change and what the world was going to look like. I decided what was I going to do with it? So I ended up writing a book. It is my 5th book, because prior to that I did Geeks, and Googlization. We talked about the multi-generations in the workplace and how technology was going to change it. I said, I'm going to update that book, and then realized how fast things were changing, because I wrote that in 2008, and you know, those darn millennials were ruining the world. How many millennials are in the room? Okay, a couple. If you read the book then, pretty much bashed you guys like everybody else. Then kind of became a recovering millennial basher, got the millennial mindset, and took a step back and said, I need to do another edition, because now we have Gen Z, we can bash them instead. But really, my outlook and my perspective changed. But we really have to talk about how technology was changing everything, how it was revolutionizing. And I started to say, this will be easy. I'm going to write a new chapter, going to take the original book, which was pretty good, except for the millennial chapter. I'm going to talk about how they've evolved, how they were now in their 30s, now oldest millennials, by the way, are in their 40s. So for anybody that still believes millennials are ruining the world, we're talking about the 20, 30, and 40-year-olds. That are in the workplace. Stop it, go back and respect, flexibility, authenticity, we heard this morning, transparency, all those nice things. We need to be just kinder and more open-minded about the different generations. But the biggest thing I realized, I really didn't talk a whole lot about technology. I talked about the iPod. I talked about the internet. And I said, my goodness, I mean, things have really changed. I'd never even talked about a tablet or an iPad or the cloud, how that was changing business, how that was changing HR, how that was changing recruitment, and realized it hadn't been invented yet. This was 2008. The iPad came onto the market in 2010. The iPhone was only a year old. And now think about all those things. And it was like, I got to rewrite the book. I got to start from scratch. And now the book is about change. So I wrote the book. I did my TED Talk, wrote the book about change, which was about Google. I came up with Googlization, the term. I figured I'll keep that theme going. And said, but it's got to be in some context. So I wrote it about how recruiting was going to change in the age of Googlization in the future. Little did I know that 3 years later there'd be a pandemic. And a month before the pandemic, in February 2020, I released the 2nd edition of the book, which was the same book except 5 new chapters, because I thought so much changed in the 3 years between 2017 and 2020, and here we were. Here's the crazy thing. Everything I wrote about sort of came true. It was like, here's the world we were moving toward. People said, what's Googlization? Googlization was 2020. Googlization was this massive shift. The subtitle of the book, which I often use just in conversations, is when the shift hits your plan. And the shift, gotta be careful when you say it, the shift hit everybody's plan in 2020. And you know what? It's hitting in 2021, it's gonna hit it in 2022. We are on this exponential curve. So that's what we're gonna be talking about. That is what Age of Googlization is. And it completely changed the definition of work, the definition of a job, the workplace, and it especially changed recruitment. The problem is that we're a little bit slow at trying to catch up, because we're still using practices that were used, the same practices, the same application. We still post a job and expect people to apply all the way back through 1950s, 1960s. The world is really, really different. And so I'm going to give you kind of the background of why, kind of reinforcement to go back to your companies, back to your employers, or if you are the company, go back to talk to yourself. Why you need to change and why you need to do it quickly. And then I'm going to go through a whole bunch of tips, and we're going to conclude with how do you play by Google's rules.